Hello and welcome to Improbable Things. I'm J. Grace Pennington, and this is my podcast where I share 6 improbable thoughts before breakfast, which for my podcast means 6 thoughts about reading, writing, or storytelling in some form or fashion. And I almost did not record a podcast this week because I just didn't feel like I have a whole lot to talk about, but I did manage to scrape 6 things together to share with y'all, so I am ready to get started. So number 1, I think I told y'all last week that I had finished getting the In His Image audiobook recorded, and I've gotten it all edited and uploaded to Audible, and I'm now just waiting on their approval, and then I'll have steps I'll have to take before I can get it up on YouTube. So not a lot I can do there right now, but I am planning to go ahead and start recording the Machiavellian audiobook, book 3, pretty soon here, so I can go ahead and get the ball rolling on that one, so we can, just try to keep some momentum going. I have lots of books to record and get up there, and hopefully it will pay off. But either way, I'm really glad that I'm just getting this done and just getting some more content. This is something I've wanted to do for a long time, and so I'm really happy that I'm finally just kind of like going for it and just prioritizing and making it happen. So honestly, probably shouldn't even say this, but the 3rd book I feel like is kind of the weakest of the whole series. There's still a lot of things I really love about it, but I do think they're probably going to be a little bit cringe going through it for the recording, but you know what? That's okay. I wrote it like a decade ago. I've grown. But what's weird is that I feel like the first 2 books are actually better, so I don't know what happened there, but either way, it does have a few of my favorite characters and some great moments in my opinion, so those can hopefully carry me through. So number 2, I'm finally starting to really think through some goals and timelines and stuff for finishing up Time Stream, the book 11 that I'm currently working on, and I'm still waiting for feedback from some beta readers, some of which requires me to finish actually reading it to my husband. But there are some things I already know I'm going to need to change, particularly the very beginning, so I want to go ahead and start working on that. And my goal is going to be to try to do all the edits on it in March, which that will definitely be a lot of work. But I think if I really put my mind to it, I can do it, especially since I don't think it's going to require, other than maybe rewriting a lot of the beginning, I don't think the rest is going to require a ton of huge edits. I think it's going to be, just some tweaks. So hopefully I'll be able to make that work. Maybe get it out in April. That's kind of my goal, but we'll see. And that also all means I need to really pretty soon start work on writing the next one. But I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. I'll try to focus on one book at a time for now. So number 3, I wanted to just update y'all a little bit on the YouTube series I've been putting out, How to Do It All. I actually just recorded episode 13, and I think I just released episode 11, so I have a couple more just waiting. And then I might do some more. I'm still trying to figure out what else I have to add. But I just wanted to say it's been really fun. Like, I wasn't sure how it would go, kind of translating these thoughts and ideas and suggestions into video form, but I feel like it adapted really well. And if you haven't seen the series, it's a lot of the kind of more practical things I talk about on this podcast, but much more organized. Just about some of the ways that I've been able to be more intentional with working toward goals and things like that. Whether that's changing, mindset, or changing specific habits, ways to make habit forming easier, ways to be really specific about how you use your time, things like that. And so anyway, if that's something a lot of people do ask me, just because I do a lot of stuff and I have a lot of little kids, and a lot of people ask me about that. And so I just wanted to, especially because that's not natural to me at all. Like, I'm not a naturally really productive person, like especially not consistently over time. And so the fact that I've been able to change things and be so much more that way over the past couple of years really excites me, and it's something I really want to share with other people because, again, it didn't come naturally to me. So I feel like if I can do it, other people can do it too, and I find that so exciting. And just the idea of encouraging people right where they are to still be able to live their dreams, and in a way that is really practical, that really can work with the life that you're in right now. It's just, I get excited about it. And so definitely, if that is of any interest to you, there are now 11 episodes up on YouTube about it, with at least a couple more coming. I think definitely probably I may have 14 or 15 all together once I'm completely done, but either way, we'll have at least 13 because that's the ones I have recorded. So if you find that interesting or think it might be helpful to you at all, please do check that out. Well, number 4, I know I've talked quite a bit about this already, but it just never ceases to fascinate me. And that is there's the different ways that my kids' minds work, like different from each other. Because I know I've talked about how I'm teaching my second girl, my 5-year-old, how to read in school. And we've already been through the exact same reading curriculum with her older sister. And so just the ways they respond to the lessons is in the way it's different from each other. It just tells me so much, I feel like, about their brains and how they work. So like, just here's one example. We're using the Teach a Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons book. And it will have you sound out certain letter sounds, and it always wants you to like say them slowly. So like if it's an S sound, you hold it out and you go like, like drag it out. But then they'll clarify that there are some sounds that you can't say slowly, like a T sound, you can't drag that one out. So they'll always tell the kids, say it slowly if you can. Well, they also have they don't ever mention this like in the lessons, but they have different little marks under the letters. Like there's a little dot if you can say it slowly, and there's this kind of little arrow looking deal if you cannot say it slowly. And all through 100 lessons, my oldest had never said a word about that. I don't know. She definitely could tell which ones to say slow and which ones fast, but she never said anything about the symbols. I don't think she noticed them. And, we're just a few lessons in, and already my 5-year-old, just on her own, when we get to that part of the lesson, she goes, oh yes, look, see how it has that under it, and that one you can't say slow, and that one too, and so that tells me that when it has that, you can't say it slow. And just the fact that she noticed and picked that up and was making these connections, she's always just making all these connections in her brain just very automatically. But then I will say, on the other hand, I was playing some game last night. I was hanging out with my oldest, and she requested to play some games on my phone. And so I was showing her this little logic game I have on there, very basic. There's a grid and 2 different color squares, and it's you can't have more than 2 in a row of the color, and each row and each column has to have an equal amount of blue and yellow squares, and no 2 columns can be the same. Just those kinds of just rules, and then you use those to fill up the grid. And I had showed it to my 5-year-old before, and as I expected, she wasn't that interested. But my 6-year-old just immediately picked it up. She was just okay, well, that one can't be yellow because then there would be 3 yellows in a row. She understood the logic of it right away. And so I'm always so excited to just use those little things in life to see what their strengths are, and to see those things just naturally coming out, and to use that information then to help me see what they individually need as they're learning and growing. And it's super exciting to me, and I love that is one of many things I love about homeschooling, is just getting to see those moments myself in real time and getting to experience that with them. So I'm sure I'll talk about that again in the future because it's so exciting, but yeah, it's just lots of fun. So number 5, I just yesterday finished reading a book called Crosstalk by Connie Willis. And I'm sure I've mentioned Connie Willis before. I read a bunch of her work last year, and I discovered her books through book club, And one of my friends who's also in book club loved her like even more than I do, and like set out to read like all of her work basically. So my friend had read Crosstalk and just adored it. Like she could not stop talking about it, just loved it. And so I decided, I'm going to read it. So I finished reading it and I did indeed find it very delightful. It's basically like a sci-fi rom-com, which is an interesting category. But it has a lot to do with just like communication and, what its implications are for society and humanity, and also a very realistic look at the effects of sin nature on people's thoughts and communications and things like that. And I ended up really liking just the characters and the world and the concepts and the way it made me think, because that really is one of my very favorite things about science fiction, is that way that it allows you to just take some sort of premise to like a further conclusion than you ever could in the real world, and it just forces you to really think deeply about those things. And so I loved that aspect of it. I kept thinking like this would make such a good movie because there's these intense visuals and just the sounds and everything going on with like the mind reading and the mental stuff or whatever. I'm like, oh, I'm sure, I highly doubt they would make a movie of it because it doesn't seem like she's necessarily a popular enough author, but maybe I'm totally wrong, and that would be super cool if they made a good movie of it. But anyway, I really enjoyed it, and I definitely made me want to continue reading more of her work. It's interesting because there are some things to me about that frustrate me about her writing, like and some in a good kind of frustration, like you're just like, oh, what's happening? Like, what's the explanation? Like pulling you forward into the story. So some that, but then it's a little bit of a mixed bag where sometimes it can get a little repetitive and the characters kind of go back and forth a little too much, in my opinion, and stuff like that. But it's so delightful in so many other ways, like her characters and just the humor and the deep thought-provoking nature and that kind of thing. Like it's totally worth it for me to like endure some of the smaller frustrations of the writing style. So anyway, definitely plan to read more Connie Willis, and I really enjoyed Crosstalk. So number 6, related to that, in addition to reading Crosstalk over the past week or so, I had a really good friend of mine in town for several days, and one of the things we did was watch a couple of different like period drama miniseries. We watched the 2008 Sensibility, and we watched Wives and Daughters, and I really enjoyed both of those and just was really so delighted by the romances in those stories. And it really got me thinking between those and then reading Crosstalk is just like my thoughts on romance in fiction in general, because I always say I hate romance, and that's only sort of true though, because really I hate romance novels and most like romantic comedies and stuff like that, because like they're just, I mean, obviously in a lot of them there is like a side that's like more race, that can be more racy, or like even just overly focused on like the physical attraction, and I just don't like that. But even like I remember several years ago, my neighbor lent me some Christian romance novels, and they were fine, but they were just like, I don't know, just the way the romance was portrayed, even though it was very pure, it was, from on that standpoint, it was just still so like overdone and just kind of like annoying, and just didn't feel real to me. Like, I don't know, I just find it annoying, and I'm just not interested. But I really do love like a good romance story, and I did find like, I think a couple of things that like those things have in common that I mentioned, like the Jane Austen or Elizabeth Gaskell stories, and then the like Connie Willis's sci-fi rom-com. And I think a couple things are that it was not all about the romance. Like the romance is a huge, even the main part in a way of the story, but there is a lot of other things, a lot of other depth, a lot of other, interesting things that are going on around that fill out the story. So it's not just about that, and I think that just feels more realistic and comfortable, because life, romance is a huge and important and beautiful part of life, but it's not everything. Like, there's other things going on, other things to think about, other things that are important. And so I think that was one aspect of it. But then also, to me, just the nature and like the vibe, for lack of a better word, of the romance itself. Like, it just, and this might be just like partly because of my own experience, because with my husband, we were like really close friends and best friends before we dated, and our romance has always been like just more like quiet and comfortable and like sweet, and not this like huge over the top dramatic thing. And I love it that way. And so I think I also like those kinds of romances more, where it's sort of, builds more gradually, or has like more of a sweet feeling to it, when there's, more emphasis on something like hand holding over, more dramatic things, and just a care and consideration, and like it's based on people that feel real and like realistic feelings, that might be very strong and passionate, but it's just more, it's more than that too, and like there's more subtlety to it. And so it's kind of interesting to just think about also, as I for the first time kind of dip my toe into writing some romance, as there may be some things brewing very slowly in the Firmament series, to just think about that, to think about what makes a romance that I personally can really enjoy reading or watching. What are those elements that to me make it delightful rather than kind of just cringy? And so I definitely want to do more thinking on that, like pay attention to what are those elements. And I do think so much of it is going to depend on a person's experience. And so, they say write what you know. And so writing from that experience of something being like growing out of friendship and being more quiet and sweet and comfortable and things like that. Like, that's what I love to read, and that's what I love in my life, and that's what I am planning to write in my own storytelling. Thank you all so much for listening to my rambles this morning. Hopefully it was worthwhile, a good use of your time. I always do really enjoy sitting down and talking over these things with everyone, and definitely would love to hear your thoughts. If you've watched my series, How to Do It All, please let me know if there's anything else in particular you'd like me to address, or any questions that you have. I love ideas for more content on there. If you've read Crosstalk or any of Connie Willis's stories, or anything along in that vein that you think I would like, let's talk about that. I really have enjoyed discussing her work with people, because it's just sort of unique and really interesting, the different ideas that she works through in her stories. And then I would love also to hear your thoughts on romance. Do you like romance stories? And if so, what kind? And do you find a lot of romance stories unrealistic and annoying, or is that just me? Please let me know. So again, thank you all so much for listening. I hope that everyone has a great day and a great weekend ahead, and stay improbable. Bye.